Hey everyone, and welcome to the All It Takes to Goal podcast, the best place in the entire world, including all of Canada, to learn how to build new thoughts, new actions, and new results. I'm your host, Jon Acuff, and today I'm joined by Dustin Nickerson. Who's that? I'm so glad that you asked. Dustin Nickerson is a comedian who has performed in over 300 shows a year. That's what his average is. 300 shows a year, that's a ton of shows. His videos have been viewed over 20 million times, and he has appeared on Comedy Central, Hulu, Fox, and Netflix alongside Kevin Hart. His debut book, How to Be Married to Melissa, just came out. He has been married to his high school sweetheart, Melissa, which makes sense, that's the title of the book, for over 17 years. And together they host the popular Don't Make Me Come Back, their podcast, in between raising their 3 children. They live in San Diego, California, and we're actually friends. Don't you love when that happens, when your friends are hilarious? Well, Dustin is my friend, and he's hilarious. Jenny and I went and saw him when he came here to Nashville. He played a sold-out show, his first major sold-out show at Zany's here in Nashville. It was so fun to see him. I can't wait for you to hear this interview. But first, a quick message about the sponsor of today's episode. If you love All It Takes is a Goal, this podcast you're listening to right now, you'll love my weekly newsletter, 5 Ideas to Shout About. Every Friday, I send out 5 ideas that'll help you accomplish more of the goals that matter to you the most. You'll get everything from leadership tips to book recommendations to playlists to stories about my incessant need for queso and so much more. Whatever you're working on, whether it's writing a book, launching a business, getting in shape, or anything in between, I want you to have everything you need to cross the finish line, and I want you to have a ton of fun getting there. Signing up for the newsletter is totally free and takes approximately 5 seconds. Just go to acuff.me/newsletter. That's it. That's acuff.me/newsletter. All right, let's jump into my interview with Dustin Nickerson. Dustin, I'm so glad we get to do this podcast. I think it's going to be hilarious. No pressure, but hilarious.
Oh, I feel all the pressure in the world right now. You can see it and feel it. Everything that I'm putting out is I'm terrified.
It's palpable.
Yeah.
It really is. I just wanted you to know I use that word sometimes. Palpable.
Yeah. And you really pronounced it. You really kind of hit every emphasis you could on it. It felt arrogant the way you said it.
Oh, thank you. That's weird. I thought you were going to say great. Not arrogant's a weird compliment, but you live on the West Coast, so I don't know how you guys talk to each other out there.
We don't throw around those kind of big words.
Yeah. Are you packing bags right now to move to Nashville, or is that you're not doing that?
No. Who wants to live in Nashville?
Everybody wants to live in Nashville.
Gosh. No, absolutely not. Oh,
that is so funny.
Nashville's fine. I love you. Are you asking me to move to the basic white girl capital of the world?
Oh, wow. Okay. Easy. San Diego.
If Nashville had a catchphrase, it'd be yes. That's it. That's everything I like Nashville a lot.
Lots of A's, lots of S's.
I like old Nashville. I grew up listening to old outlaw country with my redneck dad, and that's what I want. I mean, for goodness sake, I got a Johnny Cash hatch right behind me, right? I mean, I know your family is on, had show prints, but I have to settle for Johnny Cash. But whenever I was in Nashville like a month ago, and we were just cruising down Broadway because I was doing a show there, and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't like any bit of this.
That's so funny. Were you down there during the day or the night? Because it doesn't matter.
It was at night. Yeah, I was gonna say it was.
It doesn't matter.
I didn't
Trick
know
question.
That it changed that much. Yeah.
Trick question.
So no, I'm very happy out in San Diego.
How often are you out on the road right now for comedy?
Every weekend.
Every weekend.
It's very fitting, being my who you are and what you speak about and the influence that you've had on my life, particularly your book Hustle, is very fitting that I'm on your podcast in a day. I'm in my home right now, but I woke up in a different state today and have already traveled 1,200 miles and get home, have a cup of coffee with my wife, and get on a podcast.
There you go. There you go. That feels because it's a Monday. We're recording this on a Monday. Were you this weekend with Nate Bargatze? Do I have that right?
Yeah. So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I was with Nate in Vancouver, Spokane, and Bellingham. So the Northwest, which is where I'm from. Mm-hmm. And though I suppose that's the Southwest for Canada. And then I had my own date on the Sunday in the South Seattle area. So in my mind, that's when comedians go to work. I mean, obviously we're always working and making content and podcasts and stuff like that. But in the same way that I think most people, wake up and go, hey, I go to work on Monday. Around Thursday or Friday, I get on a plane, and around Sunday or Monday, I come home usually.
Yeah. So
I do about 300 shows a year.
300 shows a year. How long have you been working on it? What was kind of the genesis of it? Like, how did you get started? Because I think there's a lot of people that love comedians. They don't just get to talk to comedians and go, okay, what was that? Sure. That's a goal. Like, I know you and a bunch of other comedians that I love work really hard at the craft, at the process, at the selling your shirt outside after the club. Like, there's all these millions of little things.
Yeah.
So give us the genesis of, okay, I think I can be a comedian.
Yeah, so I've been at it for 10 years now. I was a late starter. I was 27 when I started. I had a whole life before comedy. I was married. I am married. I had 2 kids at the time. But I'm the Comedy Central generation. I grew up watching stand-up, absolutely in love with stand-ups. Comedy is the only thing that's ever really made sense to me and helped me make sense of things. It's therapeutic. I love it. I love to laugh. And I would watch stand-up comedians just obsessively, but you don't know how to start that. And it's weird to start it, especially when I got married young, I had kids young. And about 10 and a half years ago, my family moved from Seattle to San Diego, and it was kind of just like a reset. And I had always just wanted to try it, almost like a bucket list thing, and I just looked up a local comedy club open mic here in San Diego. And the great thing about stand-up comedy is a lot of people think they want to do it, and you will know your first time whether or not you want to keep wanting to do it. And the only way to get good at stand-up is to do stand-up. There's no other thing you can do to help it. There's nothing. Of course you write, but you have to go perform it because it's a feedback business. Is it funny? And so no matter what you do, if you are not getting on stage and performing stand-up comedy, you're not getting better at it. So for me, it was a hook. I was like, this is it. I did 3 minutes. I told one story about having to wrestle a girl when I was in junior high as a junior high wrestler. I got to laugh at 90 seconds. I got to laugh at the end. And I just started doing it. I was like, this is just a part of who I am now. I wanted to be that. I wanted my identity to be stand-up comedian.
What's a joke you were sure was going to kill that did not kill?
Oh my gosh. I mean, where do you even start on that one? There's so many.
Or a thought you were like, this story will be really relatable, and then you could tell no one in the audience was going to go along with it, or it was a really clever line that you were like, oh, this is going to get them, and then you do it.
Yeah, there are premises and there are ideas. I've been trying to get this bit working right now. I've tried it probably 40 times, and it's about how when I was in middle school, we're back to middle school, I had terrible acne. I had really bad acne. And I got sent to an acne clinic. I was like, we're the ugliest waiting room you'd ever seen, right? And I had a friend in there who was like, Dustin, you can't even be here. Your acne isn't that bad. And I go, oh, that's because you haven't seen my back. And I think that's so funny. I think but everyone's like, it's gross, I think. And then people are like, and it's also sad. And I think it's so funny. I'm like, don't feel bad for me. I'm the one telling this story.
It's my back.
It's my back. I've got the scars, but that's an example of a joke that I think that there is a nugget there that is so funny. And I want to be able to get people to laugh at it. But for the life of me, does it bomb?
That is so funny because you will carry an idea for years. Gary Goldman wrote the state abbreviations bit for like 7 or 8 years. Like he crafted that like a clinician over and over and over and over. So you you go do the 3 minutes, and then what's the process? Is it you come home, tell your wife, you're like, by the way, I'm a stand-up comedian now, or is it you've got a full-time job that makes money, and then on the side, you're trying to turn 3 minutes into 5 minutes into 15?
Well, the good news is I had not been particularly successful at anything in my life up to that point.
There wasn't a lot of money to leave?
I mean, exactly. It was like, sure, yeah. I mean, as much as middle management at the rec center is killing it right now, maybe there's something here. So yeah, no, I just told my wife, like, I loved it. I want to do it again. It was more like that. Like, I want to do this again. And then it just kind of slowly started to pick up more and more. But my wife is an artist, and so she gets the desire part of it.
Sure.
She gets the desire to create and make things. A lot of people will say this, and we talk about this in the book. But a lot of people will look at our lives and go like, I could never do that. And I always go like, you're right. You're not supposed to. Like, it's not for you. But my wife
something different.
Yeah, exactly. And I can't. And I look at people who have 40, 50 hour a week desk jobs, and I go, I could never. Not only could I never, I already have left that. I know I cannot do that.
Yeah, you've checked that box.
Oh, never again. It's not a fit for me. So, so it just kind of progressed. And that's the nice thing about making comedy is it's a milestone type industry where you go from no money to, okay, well, it paid for your gas money, and now it's your grocery money. And then, oh my gosh, this paid rent this month. Or, we can pick it up along the way.
What are the milestones that you think through? So is it, okay, I'm an opener, I'm a middle, I'm headlining my own shows. Now I'm in theaters. Like, what are the milestones in the ladder of comedy success?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of what you just said. I think when I first started, I would track more of those. More and more, I don't set a lot of hard goals because my business is one full of gatekeepers and tastemakers. And I never want to leave my goals in other people's hands. And so if I want to do the Tonight Show, that's not up to me. That's not up to Jimmy Fallon. That's not up to NBC. That is up to one guy. There is one human on this planet who can give you the Tonight Show. So having that as a goal, having it as an aspiration is one thing, but having it as a goal makes no sense to me. So my goals are more, how many shows, how hard I'm going to work, how much content am I going to make, how much do I want to see things grow, all things that are totally within my hands. But the milestones are just that. The first milestone was to get on stage as much as I could. And then the next one was to be a professional comic. Only other goals I've ever really had are to be a professional comic, for this to be my job, or like milestones. And then after that, we're like, I want to go into every city and play their best club, and then progress to the point where when I'm there playing that venue, 80% of the people are there to see me. They're not there on BOGO comp night, or they're not there on, it's my birthday, I got free tickets. They're there. They are Dustin Nickerson fans. And, but that's a good thing that takes a while to grow. And that's a good thing that it takes a while to grow.
Yeah. If it didn't, you would be in front of a lot of people discovering you're not good.
Exactly. That's
not what you want, where somebody goes, hey, we're just going to we want 5,000 people to find out tonight that you haven't honed your craft. And you go out and
that's exactly the opposite of what you want. Like, no, we've heard of him.
Exactly. A
bunch
of us saw him.
Yeah, we know the name.
We've seen the show. I love that, though, about the goals you can control versus the ones you don't, because in my industry, it's people say, I want to hit the New York Times bestsellers list. That's my goal. And I'll say, that's a great aspiration. It's not a good goal because you don't control that.
Right.
Like
exactly.
That's not within your control. So you're going to be miserable if you make that the thing.
Right.
Because you don't have any control over that.
But writing a book can be a goal. But how many people buy it? That's not really up to you. And with the New York Times bestseller, when they buy it, where they buy it, the time frame, all that kind of stuff, that's totally outside of your control. And I just think you're setting yourself up for some inevitable disappointment in that scenario, because and I can talk to people. I know a lot of people who have achieved what other people's goals are, And that kind of takes some of the allure and some of the shine off of a little bit, because they know, this wasn't actually merit based always. It wasn't always talent based. It sometimes there really is a dumb luck to these things.
Yeah.
And so it's I feel maybe it's because because I'm I'm reasonable and I'm very wise about these things, or I'm just incredibly controlling and I want to be able to
yeah, it's one of the two.
Yeah.
One of the two. But
Yeah.
I think there is that sense, the two, of when you've met people that have achieved something and you realize it didn't automatically change their whole life instantly. So they go, yeah, I did the Tonight Show, and the next day I got a bagel. Nobody was like, I need your autograph on my bagel. Like they didn't give me an NBC deal the next day, which I was hoping would be the response.
And on a more ethereal level, it didn't make them happy either. It's not always, but I mean, that's the Jim Carrey quote, right? I hope that everyone that wants to be rich and famous gets to be rich and famous, so they'll realize it doesn't make them happy. And there's really a lot of truth to that, because I know people who get these opportunities, and I've had these opportunities, and the reality is it's a lot of emotions. There is some happiness, but there's a lot of pressure, and it's hard to be happy when you're under pressure.
It's a little different.
I'm so happy I'm getting this opportunity right now.
Yeah.
And then in this business too, then a lot of time these goals, you're making something, and now you have to worry about how it's received. And that's just a whole new set of worries too. Like I have a new bit that I'm doing about like cyberbullying, and I used to think that like cyberbullying was a joke. And then when you start posting content online, you're like, oh no, this is way worse than normal bullying. This is so much more. I'd rather get shoved in a locker than get this,
Yeah. That's so good. The joke I always do is nobody criticized how I set my cubicle when I worked at Auto Trader. Strangers in Topeka, Kansas weren't like, have you seen this guy, Jon Acuff, who's a senior content designer at Auto Trader? Terrible, terrible what he does. And then like you create a book, and all of a sudden, or you create a podcast, or whatever the vehicle is, you do start to get some of that. So I think some of what you're saying is you have to love the craft of it, because you're going to spend so much more time in the craft of it than you will in the result of it. So for you, what does craft look like when it comes to being a comedian, creating content, creating a life that's unique? What does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the healthiest place that a comedian can always get them back to is you are not primarily, it's almost like 50-50, and that you are in it for love of the game and for love of the craft, but it's also you're in it because you love making people laugh. I think it's still at its root has to be about the laugh. And I think that that's why stand-up comedy really sits right there in the middle of the Venn diagram of art and entertainment, because we are show business. And yes, I don't like comedy getting too self-important or grandiose, or like we suffer for our art or anything like that, because we are in we sit down with audiences with a social contract agreeing to ha-has. That's what we're doing. I'm here to make you laugh. That's what we're doing. So I try and stay rooted in that. But then the actual craft is very fun. I really, really love doing stand-up comedy. I like the process of the genesis of an idea, that there's something there that I think is funny. And how does that translate to, I'm not trying to make you laugh at first. I'm trying to see, do people resonate with this premise? Like just an idea that I've been working the last week or two about, how old are you? I'm 37.
I'm 46.
Okay. So similar demographic, like we are a generation that was never given the tools of how to deal with our emotions properly. We're a generation that needs therapy, but doesn't fully trust therapists. And so we're in this like weird content. And so I'm just like, okay, there's something there. where I want to talk about, what it's like being a dad in that. And so I want to build and build and can I get people to relate with this premise? And that's just so fun to me. And then you take that idea, you write down some beats, you practice it in your head. I talk to myself all day long. That's mostly what I do. I'm just kind of practicing the rhythms and is that funny, or throw it out there, or throw out a tweet or an idea or an Instagram story, or people engaging with this in some way, or TikTok or something like that. And then take it to the stage and just craft and craft and craft and craft and craft it. It's like chiseling down type thing. For me, it always starts longer. And then you're like, oh, I got this great new 5-minute thing. And then by the end, it's like, that's 90 seconds. You have a 90-second because you're just trimming the fat off of all of it,
Yeah, the time I did Zanies years ago, I told my buddy at Comedy Central I was doing a 60-minute set, and he said, "You know what else is good is a really tight 15." And he's a Comedy Central executive, and I was like, "That is true/hurtful." But he's right. Like that idea of you're removing things. I heard Nate. We went out to dinner after that show, me and a couple other people, because I know a lot of famous comedians. Clearly, like I'm playing racquetball with Carrot Top regularly.
There you go, baby. Yeah. I bet you're losing. That guy's jacked.
Yeah, I know. I think he's still pretty jacked. But Nate told the story of his being confused with somebody's elderly wife when he was changing his shirt in the parking lot. Like that's one of his bits. And he told it longer. Yeah, Olivia. He told it longer. And then he whittled. When I saw him do it on stage, it was 30 seconds. Where a lot of comedians would have, I think, spent 4 minutes on it, really kind of like too much fluff, too much, content. How are you removing stuff? Like, how are you making sure your thoughts are lean and they're to the point?
Yeah, well, I'm not, that's why it's important to perform it live, because I know how long it has been since I have last made an audience laugh. That's how it goes lean, is I go, I've said too many sentences without a punchline. That's how
the gap is too big. The gap is too big.
Yeah. I'm supposed to, at most, I'm supposed to go 20 seconds without a laugh, but the way I like to do it is I'm hitting, at max 2 to 3 sentences for a setup. Like I kind of try, the way that I try and write bits is like, I'll get into a premise with maybe 3-4 sentences, and then it's just punchline, 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 breathe, reset, So some of it's just it's a defense mechanism of like, I will not let this crowd, I'm going to machine gun them. I'm not going to let them stop paying attention to me. I'm going to stay on top of it. And I'm not I'm not a super high energy comic, but I'm not like a low, dry guy either,
No. Yeah.
Again, that's why the live is so important, because the longer you go up there without a laugh, you're like, oh, okay, I got to start running some hits for these guys.
Yeah, it feels like an eternity.
Yeah, because you'll lose them altogether. If you go too long without a laugh, they'll just write you off, because they're like, this isn't what I signed up on for. You're supposed to be funny. You're not making me laugh.
I thought this was a comedy club. The name of that building said Bananas. I don't know why.
Why is the name funnier than the comic?
You never want that. So I got to see you, it's been a year almost now, when you came to Nashville, and it was fantastic. You absolutely killed. It was that crowd you wanted, where it was, I would say 95% of people there were there for you.
My first sellout. That was that was my first career sellout. Yeah.
It was fantastic. Who are the comedians you'd say, okay, these are the people I looked up to when I was coming up, when I was younger? These are the people that I look to now and go, oh, wow, they are really dialed in. This is interesting to me. Because I think anyone who's listening, regardless of the industry they're in, what they're working on, they're looking at other people going, okay, how could I do something like that? We all have like a set of people that we kind of track with. Who are you tracking with?
Yeah, when I was a kid, it was Dana Carvey was my favorite comic. And it was just so playful and silly and joyful. And I remember just being like, this guy is just in total control up there. But I watched so much stand-up as a kid. I remember all the old Comedy Central ones, the Nick Swartzens, the Kathleen Madigans, the Wanda Sykes, like Dane Cooks. I had them like memorized. And when I meet these guys today, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm in this room with you guys, you know. So though as a kid, it was so I mean the list is too long, but Dana Carvey was my very favorite comic. And then the first comedy show that I ever went to was when I was at the University of Washington, and it was Mike Birbiglia was headlining, and Doug Benson was the middle, and then some little fresh-faced kid named John Mulaney was the host. The
Oh
host.
man, the
Yeah,
host.
the host. Yeah, it was like a 10-minute set, and I like latched onto Mulaney immediately
Yeah,
and just followed his career the whole way, and I still do. He's still one of
yeah.
my. I saw him 3 months ago here in San Diego, and I've watched him and those Birbiglia and Mulaney certainly for sure. And I definitely I watch a lot of like the clean comics and what their moves are,
Mm.
like Gaffigan and Nate, and working with Nate is unbelievable because you have to kind of keep the fanboy stuff at bay,
Yeah, he's just in the zone. He's so dialed in right now. Like,
Yeah, and you gotta play it cool as the opener, like you're just another comic when you're like, oh my gosh, there's Nate.
yeah.
But I just love comedy. David Tell's funny.
Mhm.
I cry laughing every time I watch him. And gosh, I still think Kathleen Madigan's probably one of my favorites. And I don't know, I just the industry is so we Hollywood is kind of losing its grip in a lot of ways, which is both encouraging and discouraging. Like, there's not a clear path anymore in our
As you
industry.
mean social media, as other forms, like your Tim Dillons, your other people build
Yeah. Oh,
mini
yeah.
empires that they don't need the gatekeeper the same way.
Exactly. Yeah. You don't need it at all.
Yeah.
And not only do you not need it at all, a lot of time going down that route isn't even the smartest route. Like, if I always say this where I'm at in my career. I'm not a nobody, but I'm not somebody.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm not a big thing, but I'm not a thing either. And
Yeah.
I've had probably, if I think back about the videos that I posted online, I've probably posted 20, 30 videos in my comedy career that have
Mhm.
gotten more views than any Tonight Show gets. Like, that's what I mean.
Which is wild.
Which it's actually savvier to spend more time on the internet,
Mhm.
because the internet plays everywhere all the time. Like back when I was touring with John, it was like, uh, you know, I was joking. I was like, dude, if I get put in one of your Instagram stories, that's going to give me a bigger uptick
Mhm.
than if I go on Colbert. So it
Yeah.
really is. That's a good thing, but it's also a very challenging thing because you don't know the path anymore. You just have to kind of find your online voice in a sense as well. Which so all that to say, you mentioned Tim Dillon. You look at someone like Trevor Wallace. These guys who have
Mhm.
just built up massive online followings, and you try and kind of glean from each of them. And then I also try very hard, like, not to be to learn from them, but not to just be an imitator, to
Yeah. Mhm.
try and find. I mean, probably the biggest influence on me in that regard is Kevin Fredericks, Kev on Stage, who produced
Mhm.
my special, and like, he's a good friend. And he is just like a mogul. I mean, he's built the
Mhm.
Kev on Stage studios. He makes his own stuff, and
Mhm.
that's the era that we're in right now.
Do you feel a pressure around that? Because I'm not a comedian by any stretch of the imagination.
No, but you're funny.
I
Yeah.
write books and I focus. Well, humor for me in a corporate speaking, I recognized 10 years ago that's a niche. Because
Oh,
I'll
okay.
never be able to out research Jim Collins, but
Oh, funny.
I could definitely use humor. But for me, I do feel a sense of pressure of like I'm not enough places all at once, always. Like you create some like, oh man, that why is that not also on TikTok and on like Smellogram? It's a new service that is great for smell. Like there just feels like there's so much content to create that sometimes I feel beyond like behind the eight ball on it. Do you feel a pressure for that? Do you feel like, wow, I've got this wide range of tools available? Is it somewhere in the mix? What do you feel about that?
I feel an immense pressure on that
Yeah.
constantly. I feel every day a pressure on that to get on. I had coffee with Birbiglia when we were in Chicago, and he said that sometimes he feels like 10% of his job is stand-up comedy, and 90% of his job is marketing his stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
And there is a real truth to that.
Yeah.
It's actually, there's a thing going viral today on Instagram about musicians talking about the pressure that their labels are putting on them to make TikToks, and it's a reality, but it isn't a burden. That's what I have to tell myself. Like, it is a job, and nobody likes every aspect of their job. And I did not get into comedy because I loved making TikToks that didn't exist when I got into comedy. But I do love the stage, and I want to advance my career. And there's always been versions of this. Like, you may not love making TikToks, but you know what? Making late night sets isn't fun either. Just like Frankensteining your act and putting into these 5-minute things and getting, some nameless guy to approve a set for you, and then transcribing it and sending it to NBC so they can approve it, and going through the rigmarole of that. Like, it's just, everyone likes driving the car, but somebody has to work on the car, right? And that's what a lot of it is for us. Is like, this is, these are all things that are working towards achieving my goals. But I think the harder part is just more emotionally when it's not going well, because you just, there's, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, podcast. So 6 social media things that I do. I engage with every single day. I'm engaging with those things. So 6 things, meaning even when one is going well, I have 5 others to make me feel like a failure.
Yeah. That's so fun. It's great that this Instagram post is going well, but you should have double dipped it as a podcast episode too. And you're like, but I didn't know it was going to go well, and it didn't. Yeah.
I had the same clip on Instagram get 2 million views, get 1,100 views on TikTok, where on TikTok I have twice as many followers as Instagram. I mean, I just serve this nameless entity of the Lord algorithm and just hope that it works out for me. So you don't. It's very maddening in that way,
But I do like the idea of, you're right, there's always been, every job has that, and you're getting to do something that gives you such joy. And same with me, like there's so many parts of it that I'm like, I can't believe I get to do this. I just think it's helpful to talk to other people that are creating content, because I think from the outside, people sometimes think, oh, I saw your videos and I'd love more. And it looks like you love making them, and they're super easy, and they come off like, that was just off the hip. I'm constantly like, and I know on the back end, it's like, I've recorded something 11 times and now I can't say that word, because now I'm nervous I'm going to say it wrong again. And I have to rewrite the whole bit.
Yeah, what you didn't see is walking around the airport like a crazy person, just talking into a thing, doing a joke that took me 11 tries, and then realizing there was a typo in the captions, and you're, oh gosh, which hashtag do I use? And, but I will say that is why it is incredibly valuable to talk to other, because I found that creators at every level feel the same way. Every level. And I remember for years, I used to tour with John Crist, and I remember he told me one time, he said, if I knew how to make a viral video, every single video would be viral.
Yeah.
And there's a real truth to that. And at every top level creator, that they all feel the same thing. It just, the scale starts to change. And whatever stage you're at, there's somebody that you are so jealous of and you wish they were them. And there's a bunch of people that wish that about you too. They're not even thinking about being the person that you're wishing you were. They're like, that's unreasonable. I should never even aspire to that. But they look at what Jon has or what Dustin has, and they go, oh gosh, I would love to have that. And we're like, well,
oh yeah.
I'm not sure I'm so happy.
That's so fun. Well, like, The Rock wasn't happy with the Jungle Cruise numbers. Like,
exactly.
Like, you know what I mean? He wasn't like, oh, that, no problem. That, like, he thought he got those reports. Like, there's always a pressure, regardless of what level you're at.
There is. And when you get there, it doesn't always feel as satisfying as you thought. Billy Corgan, the lead singer of Smashing Pumpkins, as a kid who grew up in Seattle in the 90s, I've got plenty of punk rock in me. When he was on Rogan, he told this story about just that idea of when you get to the top, it doesn't always resonate or feel, and you don't even know what to do. And he told the story of when Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness, when it hit number one, his agent called him and he goes, "It looks like you guys are going to hit number one." And he goes, "Is there anything higher?" Because he didn't know. He's like, you spend your whole career trying to climb. And then what I always think about, I tour a lot with Taylor Tomlinson, and I always talk about the other thing is no one tells you when you're at the peak of your career. Because every comedian ever comes back down, but they never tell you when you have peaked. And that's it. So every video you're like, well, I guess it's over. I guess I got my thing. I didn't know
that I'm on the downslide.
I know.
I'm now irrelevant. I'll do like senior PGA tour, whatever that is.
Yeah, whatever the comedy circuit is. Yeah, that's hilarious.
Go find some old people in some old
cruise
cities.
Ships. That's what it
cruise
is.
Cruise ships. Yeah, time to take to the seas.
Yeah, exactly. No more land gigs. To the waters.
No more. Eventually, you have to move to water. That's the progression. You start on land, you move to water, and maybe you go out to sea. So, switching gears, you've talking about creating. You've created a new book. You and your wife wrote a book called "How to Be Married to Melissa." It's your debut book. She's your high school sweetheart, got married, been married for over 17 years. You have a popular podcast, Don't Make Me Come Back There. She's really funny as well. It's definitely, I don't want to give the sense that there's like a funny person and a straight man. Like she's hilarious as well.
Yeah.
What makes you even want to write a book? Because it is a different medium. It is a different craft.
Pandemic. That was mainly.
You guys had that out west?
Yeah. Okay. Exactly. Yeah. 2 years of not being able to do my job. That was one of the main reasons. No, that's not entirely true. So my background is in writing. Once upon a time, I was down the path of being a journalist, and I've always loved writing. And I thought that, before I got into stand-up, much like you, though not to your levels of success, I had like a comedy blog, I just like writing. And the writing part of comedy came much more naturally to me than the performing, and still working on the performing. But the writing part is I love writing. And one of the things about the internet is you just never know who's watching. And I because I wasn't kind of the shackles of live performance I had been freed from during the pandemic. And I just started posting so much content online. Like I was like, I have to, now's the time. I'm going to learn how to video edit. I'm going to find my voice on here. I'm going to talk about the things that I want to talk about. I lost a ton of followers because I was pretty outspoken on a couple social issues. But then it rebuilt to being the right followers, which is beautiful. I was talking to my wife about this the other day. I go, you remember when people used to fight in my comments? They don't do it anymore. I miss it. I almost miss it. I love the drama.
That's the progression.
Exactly. But they do now, but when it gets found more organically, but there was a literary agent who followed me. I didn't realize had followed me and had just approached me like, have you ever thought about writing a book? And I go, I've had this in the pocket book that I've wanted to write for a long time, which is How to Be Married to Melissa, because I just think that marriage books are such a crock. I think that they're so, and this, especially in church circles, where people will just come up and be like, this is the book, man. Women want to be loved and men want to be respected. And you're like, what? I want to be loved too. My wife's like, I want to be respected. What are you even talking about? And I just think that the idea of, I think marriage is very funny and it's very hard, but it's also very hilarious. And the premise of a marriage book, the whole idea of it is so laughable to me. So I thought, what if we just write a marriage book? We look at the most complicated issues in marriage, the thing that causes most the tension, most of the divorces, money, sex, kids, in-laws, communication, work-life balance, faith, all those kind of things. And we're not even really giving much advice in it, little tidbits, but we're mostly saying, this is what it looks like for us. And because I'm a comedian and she's very funny as well, and we have the podcast, I was like, well, it's going to be a comedy book. And so, that's the book. And it's, I'm sure you did the audio for your own book. Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And I hadn't read it in a while, and I went back and I was like, oh, this is a good book. When we were
it's always relieving when you go back and you're like, oh yeah, this actually works.
Oh yeah. Like we had a couple times where we had to cut because the audio engineer was laughing. I was like, that's great. No, keep doing that.
Sign.
Yeah. Like I really I'm happy with how this turned out. So
what do you think are the ridiculous parts of most marriage books? Like when you say like the just the idea. Is it that they go, here's a huge bunch of solutions, or like it's a broad stroke? Like what?
It's the big broad paint strokes that this is what this is like, and this is what men are like, and this is where men are from or where women are from, and they're so opposite, and this is the key. If I hear another couple tell me that the key to marriage is a date night, I'm going to give up on relationships altogether. No, it's not. No,
You're
it's not.
One time bowling away from true love. I just don't know why you don't want to go bowling. They have so many cool bowling alleys now.
Yeah. And when you trash on date night, there's this like section of couples that are like, no, like they would rather you make fun of Jesus than date night. Like, how dare you? The blasphemy that you would attack date night. You're like, is this what if that's what you need, that's great. But that's the point. That's for you. That's me and my wife we hate eating out at dinners. We don't particularly we have things that we do and we love to do together. But the idea of a forced date night, no. I'd rather go lay down on train tracks than schedule a weekly date night. But that's the point, is that everything is so formulaic. And it's not, of course, there's hyperbole here. Of course, the marriage books have really helped some people. Of course I believe that. But, just really the idea of them in general is very, very silly to me.
I don't like any type of solution that's supposed to fit everybody, because everybody's different. So
exactly.
Like when somebody says you should take cold showers, like I saw somebody the other day that was like, you have to take freezing showers because it prepares you for hard things the rest of your day. I just thought that's like saying you could get punched today, so go ahead and punch yourself. Like, why would I start my day being like, the rest of the day could suck, let's get it started now?
Do you understand how happy I am during a hot shower? How much joy that brings me. I have good ideas. We have a thing in our house. It's in the book, actually. I talk about it. It's called Dad Spa, where I go take a hot shower. This is an escape when you're a parent. Is you're like, you know what? I'm going to take an extra 6 minutes in the shower. That's what I'm going to do.
Treating yourself real nice.
Yeah, I feel like, Gaffigan has that bit about why when people walk up escalators, like, what are you doing? This is one of the good parts of life. And I feel the same way. That's how I feel the same way about, why would you ruin a shower? This is a treat,
Yeah.
It's the same idea. It's like, you could have celery and call it dessert. But, that's not, no, just take a warm shower.
It's going to be okay.
It's going to be okay.
You can be that level of kind to yourself to have a warm shower. What would you say was the hardest part of writing this book?
It is the hardest part about writing this book is the lack of instant feedback that stand-up gives you. Yeah, exactly.
There's none.
Right? You've written books and you just go like, do I just sit around and wait for a review, or do I don't know if people are liking this, and it seems like it's more like kind of trickles in, like comedy is such a drug in that way, and that you're like, you get feedback immediately. And the internet is similar too. The internet lets you know pretty quick whether or not they like it or not, but nothing like in person. So I think that's what it's been, is just trudging through this 55,000 word.
Dude, project. It was 55,000 total?
Yeah.
That's a real deal book.
Yeah. And going, is anyone going to like this? I found myself being kind of needy to the editor, of just going like, please tell me if this is any, and when they gave you a morsel, it was amazing.
Oh yeah. They'd go like, good. Thank you. They'd go good by track comments. They'd go funny.
Yeah. So it's that is the hardest part. The actual content itself, like that's not super hard for me. That's kind of what I do, right? I'm in the idea generating business and content and kind of constantly creating. But it would be harder to write a book right now because I have more dates on my calendar.
Yeah. What's your process for writing? I always try to write in the mornings because that's when I'm freshest. I write whenever I can write in as many ways as I can write, on the road, I get inspired. Like, when are you actually writing? What does that look like?
Yeah. I mean, I would love it to be, when the muse hits. And there is an element of that. There are times where I would be like with Melissa, or I'd be on the road doing something else, and I'd be like, I gotta go crank this out right now, or at least a skeleton version of it and come back to it later. So there is an element of that, but I can't be fully like disciplined in like these are the blocks that I have to do it in, because I just it's honestly it's the ADHD. It's like my body bristles at it, but I do have to kind of find a balance between those two things, which is like, hey, you're on a 4-hour flight right now, you have to do some of this, or it's I do find there's certain hours I'm more productive. My writing hours are usually later morning, early afternoon. That's kind of a sweet spot for me, but it's pretty all over the place, honestly. It's managing energy levels and schedules. I learned this along the way, and I'd heard it in different things too. It really is just getting that crappy first draft done. Yep. It really is just, it's like the old Simpsons writer talked about that, right? He would, if his script was due on Thursday, he would finish the first version of it on Monday. He would just get it up to length. He wouldn't even worry about being any good. I just had to get it to length. I had to make this a 22-minute show. And then he goes, once I had done that, I had done the majority of the work. On Tuesday and Wednesday, I can punch this up. I can make it a little better. Yeah. I can tidy it up. And I'm a similar way. Like, just get that crap done. Chapter 3, everything that you have to say about money on this, and then tidy it up and make it funny and move it around and stuff like that.
And it's a similar process with the comedy. You're working on a premise, creating drafts, punching it up, testing it live, recreating.
Yeah, the first thing, stand-up is similar, and the first thing that I'm trying to do with stand-up is find out if they resonate with the premise. That is the very first thing I'm trying to do. If I bring up and you can feel it. Even if they don't laugh, you can feel like, oh, they wanted to get there with you. You just haven't built the bridge yet, Yeah. And then there are other ones where you just bring up an idea and you're like, that is just too uniquely me. Yeah. Apparently you guys don't think or feel that.
Yeah, that's funny. What is one of your favorite bits that you do? Because I would say one of my favorite lines that you have, and I'm going to butcher it, which is terrible, but is when you essentially say you didn't grow up poor, or you didn't really grow up poor, you know how to ski. Like, right. That line, that idea is so, like, I think about that constantly.
Oh, fun.
Because like that's one of those lines that stays with me. What's one of your bits that you're like, you know what, this is one I really feel good about?
I think maybe probably my favorite joke that I've ever written is about being married at 19. Like, when you get married at 19, how does the joke go? I haven't told it in a while because it's in the old hour. That joke is in the new hour. I'll tell you my favorite joke in a second, but this creatively, this might be interesting to you. The premise of that bit is that I don't like when people act like they grew up poor, but you know them, so you know better. They're like, I grew up poor, and you're like, no, you didn't. You know how to ski. Like, there's no. But that wasn't in Overwhelmed my first hour because it never found a home. It was just kind of this like weird standalone
one-off island idea.
Yeah, so I've posted it as a clip before, but it's never lived in the hour. And now it's expanded to a much bigger idea about a tension that I have with my kids who have more money than I had growing up. And then I make fun of like how I think it's so insulting when rich people talk about being minimalists. Like, it's like, you're like, yeah, I mean,
that's so good.
We were minimalist, but not by choice. I would have loved to be a maximalist. I would have loved that, So that's an idea. That's a joke I wrote a long time ago, and now it's a bit. Right now, it's just not a joke.
But it found a fuller home.
It found a fuller home, and I think it fits into the bigger idea of this new hour and so on and so forth, which has to.
How long is that bit like now? Is it like
now? Well, because now it's in the chunk that leads up to the closer. So it lives in like a 6-minute bit now.
Ah, that's awesome.
And that's really what a lot of it is for me, is just grabbing all these different things and then, okay, this can go here and this can go here and this go here and this. And then that's, like I launched my headlining tour starts in June, and I spend, my 50 dates or whatever hashing out this hour, and then you record again in the fall and then you reset. It lives in a much larger bit right now, but it is an idea that that I was so happy that people resonated with that idea.
Oh, it's instant. It's instant. It really.
It took a while. But my favorite joke that I've ever written probably is, I talk about, I got married at 19 and I'm not even in the army, and that always gets a hit. And I go, when you get married young, people always assume one of two things, Mormon or military, and neither. I don't like big groups with secrets. And that's a good example of a joke that like 75% of the crowd likes, 25% of the crowd misses. But most of my comedian friends, that's one of they love that joke because it's pretty nuanced. That's a pretty smart little joke I wrote.
Yeah.
So I like that one a lot. And that's another one that it's very satisfying when you write a joke and it like does well online for you, because you're like, this is a good representation of what I'm trying to be out here,
Do you have a sense of jokes like that where you're okay with a percent of the audience really getting it and a percent of the audience not getting it?
Yeah. Or not relating to it, but it's still the joke you want to tell. I don't, if they're not getting it, then
you haven't done your work. It's not clear
I haven't
enough?
done the work yet. I haven't dove into it. But if they're not fully relating to it, then I still will tell. Like I have jokes right now that I'm talking about why I love being a renter and why I never want to own a home. And, and it kind of like gets into about how millennials and, into the economy and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But so I tour primarily with two comedians. Taylor Tomlinson is who I primarily tour with. She's like, we started open mics together. We've been friends for like 5-6 years. When she first started, she was like 17. I was like, we're not friends. I'm a grown adult man. We're not.
We have children. We don't. Yeah.
There's no friendship here. But when I tell the jokes about being renters and how like I'm never gonna own a home and with her young crowd, murders, brings the house down. Mm-hmm. For Nate's crowd, they're like, well, we're all homeowners, we're the landlords that you're making fun of in this joke. So they laugh at it, but they don't it's kind of like when you tell parenting jokes to non-parents. They can laugh at it, but they don't like feel it the way that they do if those kids are theirs,
Oh, that's good. I mean, I think pastors do that when they do a marriage series, and then they try to say like, and even if you're single, this will be helpful later. 4 years from now, they'll remember this sermon if they get married. Like,
that's exactly what it is. No,
like,
they don't.
They're not going to get it. It's not going to relate, and that's fine.
It can't be the only thing you do. There will always be jokes that are not for everybody up there, and that's okay. But they still have to understand it. They have to understand what you're trying to say.
Totally. Well, only 2 last questions. I always ask, what would you put on your like Mount Rushmore of nonfiction books? Like, and if you go, you know what, I don't read a ton of nonfiction, you can answer the question, what's on your Mount Rushmore of current comedians that you're like, oh man, these are people that I love. Or you might say, I read, like I'm really into, nonfiction books. These are the topics that keep me motivated. I don't want to assume everybody reads I'm a nerd that way. Like I love personal development books. So feel free to answer it either way.
Well, Hustle's number one.
Well, I have to start. It's called, are you talking about Start? I never wrote a book called Hustle.
No. What was the book that you
Finish?
Didn't you, or did you make a joke about wanting to call it Hustle, or what was it?
30 Days of Hustle?
No. You had what was your book about where you talked about changing in the airport?
Quitter.
Quitter.
Yes.
Quitter. But you talk about in that
book,
I
talk about hustle a million times. Okay.
And you talk about wanting to call the book Hustle, but
but it sounded too much like I was drug dealing. Yeah.
Yes.
So the title got squashed.
Okay, there it is. So
there's the connection. Yeah, I wanted to, and they were like,
I remember that book more than you.
Yeah, 100%.
I remember that part of it. Yeah,
that was too early. Like I wanted to name that, but hustle hadn't become a word people said on the internet really yet. Like where side hustle hadn't been.
Yeah,
so hustle was
that was yeah. So
I don't want to say profit, but whatever. So quitter. Okay,
that's 1 through 4. That's
1 through 4. Yeah. That's 1 through 4.
I'm glad we did settle that because I was like, I know I read that book, but I'm sorry I forgot the title.
That's so funny. You used the title I wanted. That is true. I think
you made a joke in there about like you don't want to explain to like your grandma or your mom or something what it means or something like that.
And I'd already the first book I wrote, Stuff Christians Like, the first chapter was about how Christians don't want Jesus to come back before they get married because they're like, hey. And my aunt said I had to read your book from the back to the front. So that was her saying like, like I couldn't. I was like, oh, I'm sorry. Like, I didn't really think about that. So I didn't want to name it Hustle. So okay, then who are your 4 comedians right now? So people are going to go, oh man, Justin, who should we keep an eye on?
So like current Rushmore of like the best, or just like my favorite?
Or that you're enjoying, or that you'd recommend to people.
Yeah, that's a good question.
If you want to alienate any friends and leave them off the list, whatever is helpful.
I will say company excluded of people that I work with or are my friends, maybe comedians that I watch from afar. Keep in mind, I don't care if comedians are clean or dirty personally.
Yeah, you're filthy.
I'm a clean comic, but I don't do that out of some moral reason. Yeah, I do that because I like to make comedy that everybody can watch together. And that's why I make clean comedy, but I enjoy all types of comedy. There's a guy named Michael Longfellow. He's a kid out here in California. He's from Arizona originally, who's very, very funny. He's an up and comer. I'll just name some of my favorite specials. Michelle Wolf's last special. I think Michelle Wolf she makes me like cry laugh. Mm-hmm. I think Michelle Wolf is so, so funny. And even as big and as successful as she is, I still would categorize her as underrated. I think
that's a great compliment for somebody.
Yeah. Brian Simpson, who is a friend and I started with, but he just had a Netflix special come out, or he's on one of the 30s. I think he's brilliant and prolific and is just like going to be one of the great generational comics, and he's trending on Twitter right now for reasons that people may not like. But John Mulaney, his new hour, I mean, I saw it a couple months ago, and I don't think I've ever laughed that hard at a comedy show. I mean, I was like hurting laughing. It was so, so funny. So those are 4 names that are all over the place, and but those are just 4 comedians I really, really like right now.
Perfect. Last question: where can people find out more about the book, about your social social media, and or like your tour dates? Where where do you want to send people?
I'm the only Dustin Nickerson on the internet that I can find.
So helpful.
It's so helpful. So my Instagram, Twitter, Facebook are Dustin Nickerson, and my Dustin Nickerson Comedy on TikTok. All my tour dates are on my website, dustinnickerson.com. And the book is wherever you get books. How to Be Married to Melissa. Literally, if you Google my name plus book, you're gonna find it.
Perfect. Well, I love that. Baby. I love that. And like I said, I saw Dustin's last tour through Nashville. Hilarious. My wife and I loved it. It was super fun to go to. I can't wait to see you again with the new set. And it's just fun. It's fun. I've followed your career for years. We've been kind of Twitter friends, content friends. The last time you were in town, you said, I said, let's get together. And you're like, great. And I was like, what about 7 a.m. at this coffee shop? And you were like, never in a million years.
No, absolutely not. Yeah. If I'm asleep by 7, no, I'm asleep by 7. But that was a very funny offer. And you don't even like live. I was like staying in Nashville proper. So it was like, I would have had to leave at like 6:15.
Yeah, it was. Well, I'm just like, as much as I make fun of like personal development people that are getting up at 3 a.m. and taking cold showers, I'm not far off.
No, you're on the spectrum.
I'm in that, where I was like, after I've done my workout, let's meet at 7 a.m. And you're like, I'm in comedy.
Yeah. If you and I meet for a meal, we'll be one meal off. You know what I mean by that?
I'll get lunch and you'll be getting breakfast?
I'll be getting breakfast. That's exactly it. Your dinner and your lunch. And then I'll be eating dinner around the time you're having your evening tea and reading your nonfiction book and going to bed.
Exactly. Like trying to get enough sleep. But the joke I haven't figured out yet that I'm trying to is that we're so addicted to tracking things. We even track our sleep so you can feel like a failure when you wake up.
That's very
so funny. That you can wake up and be like, I failed sleep last night.
Oh my gosh, I'm such a loser.
I'm such a loser. I didn't even know I was feeling last night while I was sleeping. Look at these numbers. They're all over the place.
Oh, that's very funny. Why? Yeah. What does it matter? Like, did you sleep? Do you feel rested? Yeah, I feel great. But my watch told me I failed.
Yeah, but this algorithm that I wear to track how I'm like, I want to make sure I'm not failing at night while I'm asleep.
That's just very, very funny. Yeah,
it feels a little intense, and so I haven't cracked that one yet, but it's in. But
I resonate with the premise. So you go.
You got it, dude.
Full
you got
circle,
it,
baby.
So awesome. Well, Dustin, thanks so much for joining me today, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to my interview today with Dustin Nickerson. We'll put all the links in the show notes as always, and thank you for reviewing my podcast. The reviews you guys write are super encouraging, and I really, really, really appreciate that. So please make sure you follow or subscribe or whatever it is younger people that are cooler than me are telling you to do. Please do that thing. That would be awesome. And please write a review. Last but not least, big thank you again to our sponsor, me, the newsletter. 5 ideas to shout about. I was the sponsor. Amazing. Remember, that's acuff.me/newsletter. acuff.me/newsletter. That's it for this week. I'll see you next Monday. And remember, all it takes is a goal.
Thanks for listening. To learn more about the All It Takes Is a Goal podcast and to get access to today's show notes and exclusive content from Jon Acuff, visit acuff.me/podcast. Thanks again for joining us. Be sure to tune in next week for another episode of the All It Takes Is a Goal podcast.